In the desolate landscapes of the north, architecture was not about style, it was about survival. Behold the Viking longhouse, an overturned ship on a sea of grass, built to withstand the fury of the elements. Its shape was no accident. The curved walls, bowed like a hull, allowed the fierce winds to flow smoothly around the structure. In Scandinavia, forests were plentiful. Wooden shingles overlapped like dragon scales shed the relentless rain. But in Iceland, trees were scarce. Here they built with the earth itself. Thick walls of turf rose like hills from the ground. Cut in a herringbone pattern, the root-filled soil provided insulation superior to wood, trapping heat in the freezing winter. It was back-breaking labor. Squares of earth lifted by hand, stacking nature against nature. The house lived and breathed with the seasons, green in summer, brown in autumn, and vanishing under the snow in winter. It was part of the ecosystem. Goats grazed on the roof, blurring the line between farm and shelter. Walls were woven from branches, wattle and daub plastered with mud to seal the gaps. The door was a fortress, low, thick, and reinforced with iron, guarded by carved runes to keep evil spirits at bay. When the storms hit, the longhouse stood firm, a wooden island in a white ocean of wind and snow. Only the smoke betrayed life, puffing rhythmically from the roof, a sign of warmth in the frozen waste. Size mattered. A farmer's home was humble, but a chieftain's hall stretched 70 meters, a monument to power. At night, it became a beacon. Orange lights spilling onto the snow, a promise of sanctuary under the aurora. Outside, the cold was lethal. The warrior shivers, longing for the fire. The separation between life and death was a wooden door. Open the door, and the world changes. A blast of steam meets the cold air. We enter the dark. You must duck to enter. The transition is blinding from white snow to a pitch-black void. Inside, the senses are overwhelmed. Smoke, noise, and shadows. Eyes struggle to adjust to the gloom. A single shaft of light cuts the haze. This is the atmosphere of the Viking home. Dark, smoky, and alive. The hearth. The eternal fire running down the spine of the house. The only source of heat and light. Embers glow red. The iron cauldron bubbles. This fire was the difference between freezing and surviving. But warmth came at a price. The upper half of the room was a permanent cloud of choke and smoke. Stand too tall, and you suffocate. Life was lived low to the ground beneath the smog layer. Beams were coated in soot and tar, a black, sticky residue of 1,000 fires. Looking up, the smoke hole was the only window to the sky. Snowflakes melted instantly in the rising heat. Ventilation was manual. Adjusting the shutter was a daily engineering task to balance warmth and breathability. The floor was packed earth, dark and uneven, covered in straw to absorb the damp and dirt. Fresh rushes were a luxury, sweeping out the old, bringing in the scent of summer fields. The high-seat pillars, carved with gods, they anchored the spiritual life of the household in the flickering dark. Polished by generations of hands, these posts connected the living to their ancestors. Light was scarce. Simple stone lamps burned fish oil, sputtering with a smelly yellow flame. Pine torches dripped pitch, trading black smoke for bright light against the dark walls. Shadows danced. The firelight created ghosts on the walls, fueling the superstitions of the north. Above, the rafters held the pantry. Smoked meat and fish hung in the haze, preserved by the very air they breathed. Ham turned mahogany in the smoke, appetizing, rustic, and essential for the long winter. Water stood ready by the door. In a wooden house filled with fire, disaster was always one spark away. A child plays in the dirt, intimate moments carved out of the shadows. Work never stopped. By the firelight, tools were repaired. The hearth was the factory floor. We moved to the walls, to the raised platforms that lined the longhouse, the parlor. This was the communal hearth, a bench that ran the length of the hall, covered in furs and wool.
Sail, though.
By day, it was a workshop, polishing weapons, sewing clothes, the hub of daily activity. Underneath, storage, chests packed with tools and grain. Every inch of space was utilized. The sea chest held the treasure, silver coins and fine cloth, the personal wealth of a Viking. By night, the benches transformed. Furs were spread. The workshop became a bedroom. Families slept huddled together, a pile of skins sharing warmth against the freezing draft. Even in sleep, danger lurked. An axe was always within arm's reach. Privacy did not exist. Snoring, crying, whispering, the soundscape was shared by everyone. Near the fire, the women ruled. The textile center, dominated by the great warp-weighted loom. Stone weights held the threads taut. The technology of fabric was complex and vital. Rhythmic hands passed the shuttle. Thwack, thwack. The heartbeat of production. Spin in wool. The drop spindle turned endlessly, creating the yarn that clothed the clan. Dyeing vats brought color. Yellows and blues steaming in the dark. Tapestries adorned the walls. Art served as insulation and a display of status. Rich embroidery told stories, documenting the myths and the culture in thread. Shields lined the walls, brightly painted. They were decoration and defense in one. Dragon heads stared down from the beams, apotropaic magic warding off evil spirits in the shadows. But not everyone had a bench. At the cold end of the hall, the thralls slept on the floor. Shivering in rough wool, the social hierarchy was written in sleeping arrangements. A dog curled up for warmth, a bond of the marginalized in the coldest spot of the house. And then the strange genius of the design, the indoor farm. Cows chewed cud in the gloom. Their thick fur and warm breath filled the air. This was central heating. The body heat of the livestock radiated to warm the humans. Hay was pitched. Dust filled the air. Living with animals meant living with their feed. Sanitation was managed. Stone gutters caught the waste, a necessary engineering feat. The soundscape was surreal. Babies crying mixed with cows lowing. A symphony of survival. Fresh milk was immediate, an intimate connection between the farmer and the food source. Cats hunted in the rafters. Pest control was a full-time job. At the center stood the high seat, the throne of the household covered in bear skins. Sacred pillars flanked it. Carved with Thor, they anchored the spiritual power of the chieftain. The Jarl sat high. Illuminated from below, he held court over his family and slaves. Opposite him sat the guest. Hospitality was a ritual, a sacred duty to the traveler. They ate from trenchers, knives and fingers, rough manners for a rough life. Dogs begged at the knee. Man's best friend shared the feast. Salt divided the table, a precious commodity that marked your rank. Horns were refilled silently. Service in the shadows. But nature intruded. Wind blew smoke back down. Eyes watered. The environment was harsh. Soot was everywhere. The constant battle against dirt was a domestic reality. By firelight, weapons were sharpened. The sound of stone on steel. Games passed the time. Hanefatov played on a worn board as the winter nights dragged on. When the fire died, stories began. Ghost tales of the Draugr whispered in the dark. Fear was real, huddled together, looking over shoulders at the dark corners. Spirits lived in the rafters. The landbetter watched over the house. Offerings were left. Porridge for the house spirits, a small price for protection. Dawn brought the freeze. The fire dead, breath visible. The hardest part of the day. Ice on the water barrel, smashing through to get a drink. Rekindling the heart, blowing life back into the embers. Flatbread on stone, a simple hot breakfast to start the labor. The door itself was a weapon, low and small, forcing a warrior to stoop. An attacker enters headfirst, vulnerable. The architecture was defensive. Inside, the axe waits, a strategic advantage built into the frame. The bar slides shut, massive and unbreakable. Security against the night. Maintenance never ended. Replacing the turf roof was a constant cycle. Goats ate the roof, a humorous problem of living architecture. Walls were dark. Mud and dung sealed the cracks against the wind. The midden, a pile of refuse that today is an archaeological gold mine. We find their combs in the trash, connecting to their daily lives through what they threw away. Wood was chopped, the stack was massive. Fueling the hearth was physical labor. Carrying it in, the transition from the noisy outdoors to the muffled warmth inside. They were not dirty. The sauna was their sanctuary of hygiene. Water hits hot stones, steam explodes, cleaning the pores in a cloud of heat. Sweating together, whipping skin with birch twigs for health. The shock, jumping into snow, a contrast that invigorated the body. Grooming tools, delicate silver spoons for ears. They cared about cleanliness. The smithy stood apart. Fire was dangerous, so the forge was separate. Iron was hammered, sparks flew, forging the tools of survival. Rivets, the glue of Viking engineering holding ships and houses together. The Mead Hall, a palace of the north, 80 meters long, a cathedral of wood. Inside, space echoed, multiple fires burned, architecture of power. Painted pillars, gold leaf and dragon carvings displayed wealth. The armory wall, hundreds of shields lining the hall, militaristic interior design. Glass goblets, imported luxury on the feast table. The Jal in silk, The scale of the room amplified his status. Acoustics were engineered. A poet's voice boomed off the curved walls.
Fire, bound by the Norns. The wolf age comes.
Roof trusses locked with wooden pegs. Master carpentry without iron nails. Politics whispered in the shadows. The hall was a stage for intrigue. Doors swung wide. Hospitality was law. Muddy travelers welcomed to the fire. Floorboards and rugs, a step up from the dirt floor of the farm. Leisure carved into the table, a game board waiting for players. At night, it glowed like a lantern, the center of the community. Sacred wood, pillars thrown into the sea to choose the settlement site. Where they washed up, destiny decreed the house should stand. Silver in the post hole, a magical foundation for the home. Deep winter, the siege of snow, the house buried alive. Tunneling out, digging through white walls just to breathe fresh air. Cabin fever, crowded and tense. Psychological stress mounted in the dark. The roof ground. The weight of snow threatened collapse. Shoveling the thatch. Dangerous work on icy slopes. The leak. Water dripping. The failure of insulation. Plug in the gap. Wool and tar fight in the water. Polar night, pitch black at midday. The fear of total darkness. Spring arrives, the awakening. Snow melts, and the sun returns. Shutters open. Blinding light floods the smoky room. The exodus. Animals released, jumping for joy in the fresh grass. The great clean, shoveling out the winter's manure. Airing out, beating dust from the furs in the sun. Restacking the turf, the cycle of repair begins again. Expansion, new arches raised against the sunset. Organic engineering, knees of wood supporting the frame. Thatching with reeds, tying nature together. The code of hospitality, a stranger is pulled in from the storm. Guest rights, the warmest seat, dry clothes and food. News from afar, the storyteller holds court by the fire. Birth, behind screens, life begins in the shadows. The father accepts. Sprinkling water, he names the child. Childhood, crawling on the earthen floor, a giant world of dust. Marriage, garlands, and festive light transform the hall. Bridal ale, drinking to seal the union. Death, the elder lies in state. The fire burns low. The corpse door, breaking the wall to confuse the ghost. Feet first, carrying the dead out the wrong way. Sealing the hole, keeping the spirits out. The burial mound, ancestors stay close, watching from the hill. House spirits, leaving food for the guardians in the dark. Blood on the pillars, blessing the house with sacrifice. Domestic industry, carving spoons, churning butter, self-sufficiency. Abandoned, a roof collapses, sunlight reclaims the interior. Rotting wood, nature takes back the home. Buried secrets, digging a safe under the bed. Silver hidden, the banking system of the Viking age. Today, we brush away the dirt, finding the treasure. The ghost in the soil, dark patches mark where pillars stood. Reconstruction, the house rises again from the data. Phosphate glow, science reveals the invisible layout. The pit house, the damp, cramped workspace of the poor. Trickling water, the struggle of the lower class. Fire, the great enemy, a spark ignites the straw. Flame spreads, the roof becomes a sheet of fire. Escape, scrambling through the bottleneck door. Collapse, the house is consumed. Aftermath, standing in the ash. Resilience, cutting new timber, the cycle of rebuilding. Experimental archaeology, rediscovering the lost techniques. Riven oak, split in wood with wedges. Touring the roof, the smell of history. Tray nails, wood on wood, authentic engineering. Evolution of style, carvings become more complex. Live in history, a tourist walks into the past. Urban cramping, Hidaby, houses packed tight, mud streets. Alleys, dark and chaotic, the first cities. Townhouses, vertical living, shop in front, bed in back. Greenland, survival at the edge, stone and turf, no trees. Whalebone, ribs support the roof, resourcefulness. Driftwood, carried like gold, precious timber from Siberia. Stave churches, the longhouse stretched to heaven. Dragon heads, cultural continuity in religion. Inside, dark and wooded, atmospheric faith. Privacy, box beds with doors, The first bedrooms, fireplaces, chimneys clear the air, engineering progress. Windows, parchment lets in light, keeps out wind. Separation, the hall breaks into rooms. Social change. The last turf houses. People lived this way until 1900. 1,000 years of tradition preserved. Modern eco-architecture. Green roofs return. Futuristic yet ancient. The red cottage. Falu rad paint acts as blood and tar once did. Decay, a beam in a bog, the memory of the earth. Modern weddings and replica halls, the spirit survives. Visual echo, shadows of the past. Read in the dirt, stratigraphy tells the story. A bead revealed, beauty lost in the mud. Microscopic pollen, reconstructing the diet from dust. Military precision, Trelleborg rings, architecture as discipline. Uniformity, the king's power over the individual. Kamen casket, art imitating architecture. Technological shift, notched logs, no more holes in the ground. Tight corners, evolution of insulation. Chimneys arrive, the air clears, health improves. The partition, privacy ends the communal age. Saga of fire, the burning in, weakness weaponized. Heat inside, claustrophobia and smoke. Collapse, the tragedy of wood. Ghost in the landscape. LiDAR reveals the invisible. Post holes. Ghost pillars fade in. Buy your tapestry. Fire recorded in art. Transition to stone, permanent and cold. Christianity arrives. Contrast, rough stone versus warm wood. Decline, turf sinks back into the earth. A raven caws, Odin watches the end. Innengard and Utengard. Order inside, chaos outside. Lock in the door, female authority. Origins of Hag. Viking survival becomes modern comfort. Cabin to longhouse. Timeless design. The family unit. Strength of the clan. The last embers. Melancholic withdrawal. Smoke curls to the stars. Connection to the cosmos. exterior sleeping beast under the aurora. A single nail, rusted but shaped. Durability. Charred wood texture. Raw wool. Breathing embers. Dragon eye. Dried herbs. The bronze key.